He stood on a stage in front of a room full of ad tech professionals and told them that programmatic advertising should be taken out back and shot. The crowd gasped. And then he went back to work the next morning selling ad technology. His name is Rob James. He used to hold people's lives in his hands in the back of an ambulance in northern Canada. Now he runs revenue for an ad server. And he has some things to say about this industry that nobody else is willing to say out loud. This is the ADOTAT Show.
I'm Pesach Latin, this is the ADOTAT Show. Today we've got Rob James from Ad Butler, a man who once told an ad monster's crowd to take programmatic out back and shoot it like Old Yeller, and then back to working selling SSP technology. Rob, welcome. Welcome to the show. How are you doing? And before you answer, I'd like to tell the audience about this time at Ad Monsters where you told a room full of ad ops professionals that programmatic should be taken out back and shot like Old Yeller, and the crowd gasped. Which means you're either the bravest person in ad tech or the most reckless, and I cannot genuinely tell which. So let me start
A little
here.
bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I'd say it's a mix of both. And to clarify, we're an ad server, and it's not just SSP tech. So, but we'll go down that rabbit hole in just a little bit, because we do have the SSP tech, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron. But anyway, I did indeed tell a bunch of folks at Ad Monsters, and this was like 2019, that I do think programmatic should die. And I didn't get booed, but it was like,
Right.
How dare you, right? Well, and I should clarify, it was more about like open auction. So this was before the buzzwords curation came along, and kind of before things like PMP and PG deals were just coming out, right? So open auction was still king back then. It was horrible, right? There was no chance. Things are getting better, progressively better to some degree, although I do think we've taken so much of the human interaction out of it, and everything is, automated, which is good, right? The problem we had back then was it was a lot of manpower, to do direct deals. And now we're in a time in the world where automation is easy, right? So why not just have direct publisher and advertiser relationships, but use automation in the middle? I mean, that's kind of what our RTB, pre-bid, whatever you want to call it, is built to do, but there's so many middlemen taking their pound of flesh in the middle, right? That it's counterproductive to both the brand and the publisher at this point, right? But anyways, I digress.
You feel that programmatic is still held together by duct tape?
If last touch attribution worked, your waiter would get full credit for the meal. We make sure the chef gets credit too. Incremental.
Yeah. To some
Which
degree.
part? Is it the auction mechanics, the supply chain transparency, the 8 middlemen between advertisers, dollar and the publisher?
I think it's like the 8 middlemen, right? Why do we need? And it's really cool because a lot of our customers that we have now are in the retail space, and retailers are kind of looking at this and going, why do we need an SSP in the middle? Like, there are certain retailers now going, hey, we're just going to have a direct integration with a DSP. You can buy our inventory
never got
directly
it
from
quite.
a DSP. Right?
Like suddenly we had ad networks, which seemed to work. Like we had ad networks, and then suddenly we didn't have ad networks. We had SSPs and DSPs, and they were kind of talking to each other out of nowhere. And suddenly it just made everything more complex.
Yeah, and then everybody comes up with a new idea. Every year we have something new that it's like, and I say we, I mean colloquial, the industry has something new. It's like, hey, we're going to add this in here, and you just add something else to, either it's like supply path optimization or it's yield management. So it's just another thing in there, and it's something else you have to pay for. Someone has to pay for the tech, right? Whether it's the brand paying or the publisher, whatever the case is, somebody has to pay for that tech, right? So everything you add in the middle, it's just another hop. It's more latency, it's more work, and it's another layer where someone else can hide something that you're not expecting, and you're paying fees that you don't want to.
So I want the
programmatic
moment that
should die.
I want the exact moment that turned you into an Old Yeller truther. Was there like an example that crystallized everything wrong with programmatic? Like when a specific client at Ad Butler came to you and you looked at the pipes and you were just like, this is insane. We're all pretending this works.
No, I kind of had this mindset. I don't know if I'm just an old soul, but I kind of had this mindset kind of going into the industry. I guess I'm more of a people person, so it's kind of built into my nature. I thought about this before, and I can't think of one example where it's like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. There wasn't one event where it was like, it's just an aggregate of, hey, I've been doing this now for so long and seeing so many people struggle, and it's like, at some point, we need to admit the tech is the problem.
Right. So I got to ask you, but you
there's
guys do sell SSP technology. Is this a little bit like, are you the old yeller's doctor a little bit?
I wouldn't say we sell SSP technology, and that I think maybe that's where.
Well, you have RTB integrations, unified auctions, multi-DBSP connectivity. It sounds like an SSP.
Yeah, I guess the thing is they have to bring in their own demand, right? So we're kind of demand.
Are you like a bartender that's also an AA?
I love that. Yeah,
I mean, I respect the internal conflict a little bit, but we got to talk about this.
Well, on one hand, yeah, no, I completely agree. So on one hand, I know that it's not going anywhere, right? So it is kind of like this unstoppable force and this big juggernaut, and just programmatic as an overarching idea isn't going away. So you just kind of have to like say, hey, you know what, knuckle under. It's not going anywhere. We're going to continue to build towards it, right? So, and I can get behind that. I think the nuance there is we're not an SSP ourselves, right? So you wouldn't compare us to say like a PubMatic or an Index or somebody like we're not an SSP. We're an ad server, right? So if you come in and say the most comparable solution out there to us would be like Google Ad Manager, right? Or Keppel or AdServe back in the day, and those guys, right? We are a first party or a publisher ad server. So we work with the retailer, or we work with the publisher, or we work with whatever the case is, and we say, hey, you've got your ad inventory, you can run direct deals. By the way, here's self-service, so you can sell that inventory directly without having to use programmatic channels and still automate it. But if you do want to connect to the SSP of your choice, we will send them an OpenRTB request. Right? Or we will send them a pre-bid request. So you can bring in the SSPs of your choice if you want them, and we won't dissuade you from that, but we're going to definitely try and convince you that there's more money to be made having that direct brand relationship. And if they want to buy it through a PMP deal, because that's what their agency or that's what their buying model is, they have to do it through PMPs or PG deals. And sure enough, we have the pipes for that, right? But we definitely try and get brands and publishers to foster as close-knit as we can, right? And then we have that self-service tool, right? So there are sites that you can say, hey, if you want to buy an ad on here, you go to their self-service portal, you put in your credit card details. The onus is on the brand then to set everything up. It's like build your own agency, right? That self-service layer is kind of like turning the agency model into something that's self-service for the brand.
So it's 2030. Header bidding is dead. OpenRTB is dead. Programmatic, as we know, is replaced by what? Paint me a picture. What does the ad transaction look between a publisher and advertiser in your ideal future?
Ooh, ideal future. 2030, 6 years away. So I'm going to use a buzzword. Don't shoot me.
I need to stop using 2030. Everyone keeps on telling me that.
It's all right. It's AI. I mean, at this point, right? So, I would say.
So your answer is really AI fixes everything? You need to be more specific.
Not everything,
because that is what every ad tech company says now. They're like, before a Series B funding,
I will be for
AI.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I think in 2030 it's going to be like it's identity anchored and its own media marketplaces, so it's publishers knowing who their audience is. I mean, it's a lot of what we have now, but think of it as much better and much more advanced. And we see this a lot. People are saying, hey, I know who my audience is. I can take my audience. I can monetize it on-site, off-site, right? And if people want to buy my audience, that's great. You can either come to my media network, you can come to my, whatever the case is, my marketplace, right? But where I think AI is going to make that better is, and we see it now a little bit with like AdCP and things like that, and some other protocols where we can take that automation. And I envision a world, honestly, where you can almost do like prompt-based media buying, right? Where it's like you go to, I don't want to say ChatGPT, but you go somewhere and you want to run an ad campaign. You're literally like, the brand says, hey, I want to buy an ad campaign on CNN, right? And it's Pepsi or Coke. They give them a prompt basically, and just the AI goes and does everything and basically comes back and says, here's the game plan I want to do for you. Here's the creatives I want to use that I've made for you, right? Here are the creatives that I think are going to get the most engagement for your audience. Here's what I really think you should do. By the way, here's the inventory that the selling agent, right? So you have a buying agent, you have a selling agent. Here's the inventory the selling agent on CNN said that's available, right? So it's a direct relationship, but the people communicating back and forth is a selling agent and a buying agent. I think that's where the industry's headed, right?
Right. Do you think that the backlash against programmatic this time is actually a genuine inflection point, or is it just for people who are at the late night bars and conferences to talk about?
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. It's definitely one of the late night bar conversations. I have this kind of fear or doubt where we've built something over the years, and we as an industry, we've built this ecosystem now that is very hard to stop. And so as much as I want to be at an inflection
built
point,
a monster.
it is, right? We did. We absolutely, and we're all responsible for it. Anybody in this industry is, you've played some part in it, right? Yeah, it's hard to stop.
Also, so moving on, the holidays are going to come early for you because you said in your questionnaire
Excuse me.
that you will always take any time to not Google Ad Manager down a peg. So in 2025,
Sure, call me out like that.
Judge Leona Brinkema, I think that's ruled that Google willfully changed in anti-competitive conduct in ad tech, illegal titling its publisher and ad server to its ad exchange and substantially harming. So here's my question. On a scale to 1 to popping champagne in Ad Butler office, how happy were you?
Very happy. You know, we've all known Google has played dirty and not nice in the sandbox with everybody for a long time.
Right.
And it was nice for the Department of Justice to come along and say, "Hey, you know what? You're right. We agree." And
everyone knew it.
It was yeah, exactly, right. And they had publishers, by for lack of a better word, they had publishers by the short and curlies, right? Like you were handcuffed.
Well, I predicted it
Google
20
Ad
years
Manager.
ago. I knew it was going to happen. When Google bought the product that I created, which is Luna, which sprinks for About, and that became the foundation of their ad network, I just knew it was going to become eventually the ad network.
Yeah, and
even
then
in 2003,
once they bought DFP, right? And then you buy now you buy
double-click.
Exactly, right? So you buy the ad server, you have the exchange, now you have the DSP, you own every part of that funnel, right? And then you just get it's Google and Alphabet, right? So they're massive. They're like, how do you stop them? So now all of a sudden they have a 92% market share on ad servers, right? How do you? We have been lucky that we have managed to survive. There are other ad servers that have come and gone over the years. We have, we've carved out a little niche for ourselves, which is great. We always kind of get asked, like, you guys are still doing ad serving even though GAM's around, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Some people just want to have direct relationships, or they don't want to put money into Google's pocket. There's a ton of reasons. Or if you have a problem,
they like to actually be able to call and reach somebody.
What I was about to say, anybody on Google, pick up the phone, and if you have a problem with your ads not serving, your campaign flighted and it didn't show up, pick up the phone and try and ask them for help.
Yeah, every time, ever since Matt left Google, I can't reach anybody. Literally.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, we go through the process of becoming like a Google certified third-party ad server, so they can run Ad Butler tags through GAM and so forth. And even that, as a vendor through them, is just a bit of a nightmare.
So why is Ad Butler better? And it's not a household name like Google.
Either,
let's just be honest, right?
It's not. It's not. And yeah, it's funny you say
the
not
real story here.
Name.
I think is how you built a legitimate product on the shadow of a monopolist. That is interesting.
Yeah, and a part of that goes back to, I think, the history of Ad Butler itself as a whole, too, right? So I've been here now a little over 10 years. It was started back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was like 1999.
Yeah, I remember. I used to use it for a website. It was horrible. I mean, that was a lot. And then I remember when you guys came around, no, it's completely different now. It was useful.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, and it was birthed from, an idea of a glorified click counter back in the day, or page hit counter, when you used to have counters, right? So it started as like a spin-off of that, because Rajiv, our CEO and founder back then, and he was a high school kid at the .com boom, built like was like the largest entertainment site on Yahoo before Yahoo was even like a search engine. It was just the index, right? Like the biggest.
I used to call the people who ran the little directories, and like they were the most important people on the internet. I totally want to be in that.
They
directory.
were. Yeah, right.
And they knew it
he
too.
Had the biggest entertainment one.
Yeah, like, what's your favorite sushi? So you can take us out.
Exactly. He had like a joke of the day thing, and it was massive. And odds are people go back and go, oh, you know what? I remember that. I can't remember the name of it now. It was like Entertainment Land or something. But anyways, he had that and realized, hey, you know what? We want to serve ads. And back then, he didn't want to pay for DFP because DFP was the only option. It wasn't owned by Google back then. And he was like, I'm going to build my own. So he just took his own page hit counter and was like, hey, how do I turn this into an ad that counts the stats? And he kind of built it and set it out there and let it loose on the wild. But it wasn't until like 2012, pretty much around the same time I came on board. I don't know if that's causation, correlation, but around the same time I came on board, and there was probably only 6 of us then. in this small office, but he kind of looked at it and said, you know what, advertising is a very viable market. We had customers, that liked it. There were certain competitive advantages over GAM. The biggest one then being API based, right? So GAM, you still had to run script on page, stuff like that. So a lot of our big wins and our early wins came from API based ad serving and server to server calls and stuff like that. And then over the years, we kind of iterated and built on it. And I think the more and more that people started to investigate their tech stack a little bit more and they wanted more ownership, we just see more and more people going, hey, you know what? We're kind of fed up with Google. And now they're looking at, and especially now with this lawsuit where they're like, we don't need to be married to, if the DOJ forces them to split, and I hope they do, and split off that AdX from GAM, then there isn't a need for GAM there anymore. Someone has
So my question is, does the market actually get better for independent publishers, or does it reconsolidate around whoever buys the pieces, like Amazon, the Trade Desk, etc., or an equity firm that just buys in, just slaps a new logo on it, becomes
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a world in which that may happen as well, right?
Can I be honest? The historical precedent is not encouraging. Google was forced to divest DoubleClick's ad serving in 2007. It didn't matter. The market consolidated around Google again. Remember AT&T in 1984 broke up, and then we just had, two telecom companies for a while.
History has a habit of repeating itself, right?
Right.
But there's
so
always
if we're going to look at what the DOJ has done in the past, every single time the market consolidates either around the same thing or just another person that's just the same. And I think that's what the Trade Desk
wants.
I'll be honest. Everyone knows the Trade Desk wants to be the next Google.
Yeah. Although I just saw, I think it wasn't their earnings call, but some information there yesterday just popped up my LinkedIn that I guess they're not doing as well as they thought they were going to be doing, at least in the first month of 2026. But you know what? I think
I would call Google is like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. It just reassembles itself.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think there's a lot more eyes opening. We're kind of I don't know if it's a bit of blinders or rose-colored glasses, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that the more that people realize, hey, we're not married to GAM.
Right.
We can still, and if
when you say it that way, married to GAM, it sounds just wrong. Isn't it like what people call their grandmother? What's Gram or GAM? Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, GAM. As long as, wow. You completely ruined it for me.
Well, you never liked it. Here's my question, though. Google Ad Manager is free.
Yeah. That's the hard part to compete. Yeah, that's the hard part to compete with. And that's why, again, they have some of this or some of this monopoly. And
free is like free in a casino. Everyone knows you're the product, though. Everyone knows the reason it's free.
And that's what I was going to say. Stuff. Yeah, right. Is it really free? You're not paying in dollars. You're paying in data, right? So it's not.
And then on first dibs on the inventory.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like a big thing. We had some customers come to us and say, "Hey, we want to get off of GAM." They're scheduling direct deals, so they have direct deals that they're working with. And GAM is coming along and saying, hey, we're still going to prioritize showing AdX over your direct deal right now because they have a commitment to their brands running through AdX. Right. And it would supersede the direct deal that the publisher and advertiser had. I was like, I don't know how they can get away with this. Okay, that's fine. But you know what we won't do? We have no control over that. You come to Ad Butler and you have a commitment to your advertiser. That's the commitment you should fulfill, not us as a quote-unquote ad server trying to put our own ads in there, right? Like, we don't do that.
So Google aside, if you could change one structural thing about how the publisher ecosystem works that would help independent publishers and ad servers thrive, what would it be?
Education, honestly. It's funny for me to say because, I'm a product guy. I have a bit of an engineering background. I think my head immediately goes to how can we solve this with tech? How do we solve this with technology? And how do we solve this with products? But what I realized the more people I talk to, and especially I've been doing this a long time, I do the conference circuit every year, and there's newer faces coming in and younger faces and Gen Z coming in, looking at this monster that we've built and not understanding all of it. But I'll give a shout out to Shiv and some others. U of Digital is a great place to go, but I think there's a severe lacking of education. Like if you go to a college,
I don't think there should be education. I mean, I appreciate U of Digital, and but the point I've always made is this shouldn't be that complex.
But we've made it.
It almost feels like it was made complex. And I mean, first of all, It was supposed to be made simple. And honestly, to learn how to put banners on a website and traffic it wasn't that hard in 2000. I mean, I taught a guy out of college who was my intern, who is now the vice president at Inc., or whatever, the company that owns Inc., for traffic serving, the executive vice president, 20 years later. It wasn't that hard to teach it, though. Yeah. And now you have to take you have to take university courses to understand how to put a banner ad up.
Yeah, exactly. Which you're kind of echoing my point. It's like, let's go back to that. Like, I don't know if it's nostalgia, but let's go back to when it was easy to do things, right? So I do think AI
and you can still have the
a little bit,
bidding structure, but you should just be like, I put a banner ad, it goes in there, I want to pay 2 CPM or a dynamic CPM, which was done. Right Media had the dynamic CPMs. You had a column, and you could adjust it between this and this, and it would pay.
You had a min,
and it worked, and
right?
you had,
and then exactly. But now
and you weren't right.
It's hard to understand. Like, you need a master's. And this is one of the things I tell people. Yeah, it's like you need a master's degree now to figure out how to do an auction, right?
Like, I bought an ad, but it didn't show anywhere, and then you're like, well, that's because you didn't pay enough. What does that mean?
Yeah,
I want to pay this much. You said I could. Well, it didn't work. I mean, it's for customers. It's confusing too, especially new ones. They put $5,000 down. It goes through either really fast or not at all.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
The 2 complaints,
right?
2 complaints of any person who goes onto the Programmatic exchanges. They put $5,000-$10,000. It either doesn't do anything, or it just goes so fast it's done in 24 hours, and they have no results.
Exactly. Their whole budget's used up in the first day, or they get nothing at all, right? And then they're like, I didn't use any money, and I tried to spend money, and you didn't let me spend money. It's become
that's why everyone's going to Google. That's why all the small businesses go to Google, because they know they can put $5 in Google and see their video go up, or see, it may not actually be real anything, but they can see the results. You put it in.
Exactly.
You put $5,000 in a desk, you are told it served, and this was what happened, and that's it.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Yep. Yeah.
So I want to move on and talk about retail media. Retail media is having its moment. Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, and everybody and their mother is building an ad network on top of their first-party data. But you point out something I find fascinating. It's not just retail. It's hotels, airlines, travels, QSRs, loyalty programs. And Marriott now even has Marriott Media. So when you say publishers figured out this decades ago, what specifically did they figure out that Marriott and Delta and Walmart are now reinventing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, so publishers have been I don't know if figured out is the correct word, but publishers have known that their audience is their users, their viewership is the kind of like their bread and butter. Right. It's coming up with identity resolutions. It's being able to segment their users into profiles. It's being able to retarget those users on site and off site. It's that sort of stuff that I would say, like, traditional publishers, maybe not like newspaper publishers, but traditional digital publishers have known now for quite some time. So when you look at retailers, they're going, oh, you know what? Like, turns out if we build a profile for who's shopping on the site and how often they buy stuff on site and what they're searching for, we can show them targeted media and targeted ads on site, off site, in the store, wherever the case is, that's relevant to them, that A, drives more purchases from the product, B, they get more paid media spend, right? It's a win-win all around. And realistically, if you're a shopper, and this is why I like retail over, say, traditional banner ads, if you're a shopper, you want to see things that you think you're going to need, right? Like, if I'm out and I go to the store, if I'm on Amazon and I see the lightning deals, whatever the case is, as long as they're relevant and pertinent to me, there's a higher chance I'm going to buy it. Like, there's no reason to go in there and show me, you can't really see me, but there's no reason to go in there and show me something for sports. Do I look like I play sports? Definitely not. But if you go in there and you show me a new keyboard or something for gaming, I'm absolutely going to go, hey, that looks cool. Let's click on that. Right. And at an individual personal level. Right. So I think traditional publishers had kind of figured this out before, and retailers and these like owned media networks, whatever you want to call them, are going, well, that's actually a really cool idea. Let's do that. Right. The problem that we've come across is a bunch of these like startups, we call them retail startups, so just saying like, oh yeah, we have the tech to do that. And then they completely forget to look at ad servers that have been doing this for 20 years. Right.
Right. Even before that, we had newspapers that were selling targeted ads to businesses just using demographics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Right. So
Marriott obviously bought ads in 1990 using that. And now Marriott's using a CDO instead of Phil in classified sales.
So, yeah. I mean, so And we're seeing more of it come in now. Like we're seeing travel media networks is kind of a buzz thing that are happening where
What's the most unexpected
and
media network you've seen? Like the weirdest one?
a crypto one came across my desk last week, which is interesting.
Which one?
I don't know if that's, I can't say.
I didn't hear you.
But there was a
Crypto. What?
Like cryptocurrency?
Oh, okay.
A crypto media network. Yeah. So targeting people that
I assume you meant,
purchase heavily with crypto.
Superman's dog.
Kryptonite? Crypto the dog. That was his name, right?
Yeah.
Crypto?
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
It means no one's actually created that network. The crypto.
Oh, I haven't seen one. Yeah. But there's that should be their logo. Whenever they make a crypto media network, it should be the Superman dog.
What was the coolest one though?
Ooh, the coolest one. Honestly, I'm gonna give a shout out A because they're a customer, but B it's just really cool stuff they're doing. HP has their own media network now, and
Which
just
HP?
Some of the stuff they do, like
You have to tell HP.
HP.
Well, Hewlett Packard, HP, not HP.
HP.
Yeah, I know HP.
HP. Yeah.
Yeah, we everyone's had one of those.
They have their media network. Yeah,
Right?
exactly, right.
Well, yeah, I get their ads on the. I have a wireless HP in the living room under the bookcase, and it's strange that anyone can access. And I get ads on the utility now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you have ads on the utility.
Yeah.
You get ads on, like if you have, and they're not just random spam ads. They are very, very pertinent to what, if you're using the ink thing and your ink's running low, they may run an ad for an ink, either on brand or off brand or something like that. Like it is pertinent. It's not just
Probably on brand. I doubt they're going to do off brand.
Right?
I think that HP makes it pretty clear that you only supposed to use their stuff, and
yeah,
if you don't,
fair enough. That's
you
probably
violate
a poor example.
some agreement or
you void your warranty.
Implied. Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, yeah,
That is pretty
I think
cool.
They're the coolest right now, just because they're doing so many different, unique things that other, I guess, publishers aren't. Yeah, but they own the tech, like they own the hardware.
So will my dentist have a retail media network in 2028?
I don't think your specific dentist would, but I think there will be like a media network for dentists where.
Well, because now there's all these dental. There's these national dental networks, they're called, I think, where you're the same name, but you're independent, but they use all their marketing and all their their branding. So maybe they'll have screens that have like a dental floss while I'm getting a root canal. I mean, and that is definitely 100% dental. I'm staring up and there's an ad for dental floss.
Yep.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, we see the same. I see it too, right? Same thing here. So I think if it's not there, it's probably coming. I do know like the vet industry in the US is doing that now, right? Where they're
I go to this chain. What's it called? I want to say Bannerd or something, and they have an upsell for everything, not just on the screens, but they ask you. But they give you. You get the thing. It's like, do you want to get this product? And you're like just trying to sign the. A dog could get its balls cut off or something, and they're like, well, you need to get dental chews, you need to get this and this. I'll take the dental chew, I'll take this, and like $500 later, your dog has no testicles, and you have a lifetime supply of dental chews.
Right? Yeah. It reminds me of the old school like gym memberships, and how hard it was to get out of a gym membership. Well, now buying something at some places is just as hard as getting out of a gym membership.
Yeah, I used Turo, and I didn't know you're not allowed to delete the app after you use it for some reason. And then my credit card started getting like all these charges. And I was like, well, you should have not deleted it because you had some fines or something you had to pay. So you're critical of pre-bid for taking the ad campaign processor and turning it into a pre-bid shaped box. It's a very specific technical concern. Can you explain what ad CP was supposed to be and what pre-bid is doing with it and why that matters to publishers?
Well, I don't necessarily think whether. I guess it's too early to say because they just kind of adopted. So ad CP was this contextual protocol for buying agents and selling agents. It was this great idea and concept where it says, hey, AI is coming. We should standardize how media buying happens with AI. And I think that's perfect because then anybody can get on board with it, right?
Well, it's AI and machine learning. I think we should make that clear too.
Yeah.
And I want to start differentiating that it's not. Yeah. That the vast majority of what's going on is not AI. It's machine learning. Machine learning. So
yeah. That
decision making, right? It's all automated decision making.
I think that's a great idea. I think it's very. It was still in its infancy, and there were still quite a few. It was almost. I don't want to say ungoverned is the correct word. Like they had their own kind of like self-governance. My fear is that if it goes, and now I guess that it is managed by Prebid and kind of overseen by Prebid, it's going to cater more to people that want to use Prebid. So if there's other tech, like let's say there's OpenRTB or other things that are out there, right? I don't want someone to take this idea and then put it into this like little Prebid box, basically.
Right. It's just another optimization layer bolted on.
Yeah, on top of
a system that you've already said's broken, right?
Yeah. So to me, it just feels like, well, kind of that idea where you mentioned like Ad Butler selling SSP tech. Is it you're the bartender and the AA host? It's kind of that same idea, right? We're putting this idea of contextualizing or I guess I hate using some buzzwords, but taking the idea of AI and machine learning and then really optimizing it specifically for Prebid, which just puts another set of handcuffs on publishers, because now in order to use it properly, you have to rely on Prebid now, right?
Correct.
It's just another set. Has, like, I hate its own people being handcuffed.
Its own politics and stuff also.
Exactly, right? So anything where it's taken over by something like that, whether it can be anything, right? I just hate the idea where people don't have choice.
So I'm going to give you a hard time. Everyone says they're AI powered, including you guys. So is Ad Butler's AI actually something interesting and different, or just like dynamic floor pricing and audience targeting?
We've had dynamic floor pricing and audience targeting for forever.
Right. A lot of people are now saying that's what their AI is doing. Right.
Yeah.
But I've looked at a lot of people's solutions.
Yeah.
I've looked at a lot of people's solutions, and that's exactly what the AI is doing. That's all it's doing.
Yeah. And you didn't really need AI for that. The cool thing with being the ad server for us is we'll call it, we don't really have a name for it yet, but what, like, we have 3 different quote unquote Ad Butler agents you can use, right? So there's a creative agent. So that is literally, you give it a prompt, it uses like Nano Banana or VO3 and some others, right? And you can you can use, these common models to do creative asset management inside of the platform, right? So there's that creative AI agent, but it does rely on somebody else, because we didn't go out and build our own creative machine learning algorithm, right? We basically use the common ones that are out there. Then we also have our reporting agent. So you want to know about your campaign performance, you want to know about your stats, you want to know about all of this. You can just ask the AI agent. Think of it like having your own intern, right? At this point, years ago, or even now, you still log into the dashboard, you go and you schedule your campaign, you flight your campaign, and when the campaign runs for a bit, you go in and look at performance, and then you may want to choose to optimize on it and things like that, right? So think of it as just being able to talk to somebody that can do that for you, right? It's just, AI is awesome. It just makes your life easier, but it's automation, right? It's automating that process of, hey, instead of me having to go in and look at, a report and compare it, I can just be like, hey, how did this one do to this? And what do you think it should do, to do better, right? So prompt-based conversation, ChatGPT and Claude have convinced everybody that we should go prompt-based for a lot of stuff, and ad serving should be the same. And that's where we're headed. That's we have in beta now for a few customers testing it out. So prompt-based ad serving.
2038. Actually, let's make it 2028. Every hotel, train, airline, grocery store, gym, and fast food restaurant now has their own media network. There are 500 media networks competing for advertiser dollars. Does fragmentation make them all worthless? Does someone build a media network's aggregator? What does the end game look like to you?
Well, interestingly enough, I think fragmentation there is probably a good thing, because a brand may want to go to a specific, if I'm Pepsi, there are certain companies I think that are going to want to divest money into a bunch of different, media networks. And then are we just back to where we were, where someone has to build a DSP, right? That connects all these media networks?
Yeah, it'd be convenient if we had someone that could create an automatic system that let us buy across all of it.
Right? So, and then we're call that, where we don't know.
Programmatic with extra steps.
Programmatic with extra steps, right? Maybe it could possibly be. I don't think it's gonna. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think. History has taught us that it could potentially go that way. And it'll be curious to see. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know.
I do think the processors could do this. If anyone could do this right, it'd be the processors. Someone like Stripe or something like that, which is amazing to me that Stripe doesn't have their own network.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know.
Imagine the first-party data you could use through your own Stripe account.
Yeah. But then that's an interesting concept. My fear with that would be, you're going through the checkout process, paying with your credit card through Stripe, and then all of a sudden, in the EULA, it's like, hey, we can use your credit card information to identify you across all these different sites and figure out, show you ads for stuff you've bought. So yeah, you just bought corn. I mean, it's kind of like retargeting on crack.
Is that what Experian does anyways?
Fair enough.
And I just interviewed their former GM this week. I mean, he's like, Paysock, we know everything about you.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you say that. And that leads me into like another completely different rabbit hole. But I went to a security conference one time. It was in New York and it was put on by the Media Trust. And they had, I can't remember if he was like FBI or CIA, but they had some sort of security and analysts there. And they were saying like, hey, people don't realize that ad tech companies probably know more about you than most of the, most other places out there.
Yeah, but not specifically. And I've heard that too, by the way. I've heard that claim. They can't match it to you though.
Yeah, well, they can match it to household, right? So generally,
they still don't know which household.
Right?
They can't say, this is Rod James and his kids. They know it's household ID 4253 or whatever.
Yeah. But if you buy enough data from enough different places and aggregate it all, you might be able to figure it out, right? Exactly. Right. And that's the one scary thing with media networks and loyalty programs and stuff like that is that, should you opt into
there's a lot of embarrassing
stuff.
TV shows I've watched, and they're all on Netflix. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So someone figures out your Netflix information, right? Or they ever, if there's ever an injunction against you or something where, your Netflix profile has to go into investigation. Yeah, all those dirty secrets of, hey, you like to watch My Little Pony, that comes out, right? Yeah.
So Rob, with that, I'm going to put you on a desert island. No ad servers, no DSPs, no unified auctions, no RTB. For the first time in your career, there's literally no programmatic anything. You said your desert island picks are your family. Full stop. No hesitation, no caveats. Well, maybe my CTO for technical support, just your family. I love the simplicity of the answer, but I want you to unpack how many people are in your family. And is Rajiv, your Yoda, anywhere on the backup list?
Yeah, he'd probably be there. Yeah, my obviously, I'm married. I have a wife and 2 kids, and I'm blessed enough that I have a large house, and my parents live in our basement apartment downstairs. They're elderly, and we take care of them. It's just the way I was raised. So my family on the desert island for sure. But outside of that, I have a few close friends that I would want to bring that I've been friends with and things like that over the decades. You mentioned Rajiv. He brought me on here at Ad Butler. Before this, I was a paramedic for a long time, but I had an engineering and IT background and stuff. So he took a chance on me, and he taught me the industry and stuff like that. And I've worked my way up the ranks to get to where I am today. He's taught me a lot. So I would probably bring him. And one of the things that he's always his voice in the back of my head when we're like hiring new people or interviewing people. And I think the biggest thing he taught me was like the elevator test. And he was like,
right,
if you're stuck in an elevator with this person for an hour, are you going to have a good time? And that's kind of how I figure out now it's how I pseudo judge people immediately in the first 5 minutes of a conversation. My head goes, if I'm stuck into in an elevator with you for 5 minutes, am I going to have a good time? And if I'm not going to have a good time, this conversation is going to suck.
What elevator takes 5 minutes?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So you mentioned you were a paramedic and you dealt with life and death situations. Of all the people on the island, you're probably the only one who might actually survive. Has there been a moment?
Well, my wife was a paramedic too. That's how we met. So I think we'll be all right.
Was there ever a moment in your paramedic career where you had to make a desert island decision with limited resources, multiple people in needs, and you had to choose?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if we're talking in the paramedic career, we would call that what's called a mass casualty incident.
I was about to ask you. Yeah, my sister is a
right
commander, paramedic firefighter. So I'm familiar with all that.
I mean,
and most of us,
we go through that training, right? Like we go through ICS 100, 200. So we do the training to make sure that you're first on scene, you're incident commander. You figure out, okay, what are the resources it's happened, right? Like where I was actually in Northern Canada at the time, right? We deal a lot with like international flight and emergencies. So a lot of the times, like if there's an international flight that has to land, and I was in Goose Bay at the time. A plane would land and there'd be, 100 people who have smoke inhalation, and you've got 4 ambulances, and you're like, oh, holy crap, right? So, yeah, I mean, nothing in ad tech is as scary as that, or having to tell somebody, hey, sorry, your child is dead,
the biggest,
right?
But the biggest crisis is like a 502 error.
Yeah, and I mean,
you've done actual triage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a level of urgency none of us in this industry can comprehend.
500 errors do scare the crap out of me. Don't get me wrong, because that means, if,
but it's
the
not
ads
a
aren't
missing
serving,
limb.
There's millions of dollars missing though, and you can buy limbs for millions of dollars, right? So it is still very, very important, and I try not to forget that. It's like, hey, and it's really cool because we built our own. I'll shout out Ad Butler, obviously, because I'm employed by them, but also just like the tech, because we're engineers. We built our own CDN. We don't run on.
You're
AWS.
employed by them right now.
Azure.
We just haven't published the interview yet. I know we have to.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly.
After the interview, you
yeah, but building our own CDN was one of the smartest things we did, because you look at like AWS, they went down for 8 hours last year. In total,
for people that don't know, that's a content delivery network.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So imagine you're a massive company that makes, millions or tens or $20 million a month in ad revenue, and you lose 8 hours of that. Right. That's a ton of revenue missing. Right. That is a stressful situation.
Feeling. I used to be that person. Like if the website would go down, I would just be like, "Oh, we have to get a new provider. We need, better DOS protection. We need everything." Now it goes down. I'm just like, whatever. I'll get it up tomorrow. I don't care.
Yeah,
because everything very little goes through my website anymore. But very little goes through my website anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. You find it's like mostly social now and stuff like that?
When, and I use Beehive and all that. And I still have my old website, but I use Beehive for all the content now. But what happened is when the Cloudflare went down, that was a mess. I couldn't, everyone was using Cloudflare, and I couldn't log into anything.
Yeah.
And that was crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So,
but it wasn't, like, it wasn't like having my limbs cut off.
Yeah. So that's a fair point. 502 errors are scary, but it's not life and death, right? But it still feels like
Bruce Wayne. And it says, my notes say you want to be Bruce Wayne, but you don't want to be a superhero, because you actually wrote that the world needs everyday people to step up. That's deeply specific and deeply personal answer for a man who is literally that person stepping up as a paramedic. Is that where the belief comes from?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm a nerd, right? I'm a nerd. I'm a geek, so I love superhero stuff. But at the end of the day, that's a pipe dream. Sure, being a superhero would be great, but would it save? Like, what good can you do with that? It takes everyday people. It takes, first responders.
So
I guess it's just because
you want to be a VC. Is that your?
Well, it depends on where it depends on what I'm backing, right? Yeah, exactly. But not backing weapons and stuff, right? Backing, backing things that are actually going to help people. Right. Yeah.
So you're stuck on the island for a year. What's the first thing you check when you get back? This will be a multiple choice. Google's ad.
Oh, my email, absolutely. 100%. My email is going to be the first place I go. Dude. I'm scared of even the last hour of doing this recording, how many emails have come into my inbox in that 1 hour. So inbox would be the first thing. I don't know if the desert island, if I'm stuck there for a year, I can go through withdrawal of other stuff, but not being able to check my email is going to drive me crazy on day 2.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about you being a paramedic. You were a paramedic from 2008 to 2015, ground ambulance, emergency rooms, operations management, and then you left because of PTSD from a tragic series of emergency calls. You asked me to mention this bio, which tells me it's not something you're hiding, but something that's actually shaped you. So here's what I want to understand. How does a paramedic become an ad tech executive? Not the resume version, the real version. What was the moment when you knew the ambulance was over and the ad server was next?
There was a gap between them. So it wasn't like a light switch, right? I ran the ambulance service in Labrador for a while there. I had a series of bad calls, and it took time to be able to talk about first responders, paramedics, firefighters, police. They all, even military and emergency room workers, they all kind of, it's a family. So when
I have a fundraiser that I have to go to at 11 for 2. We had a crash, a helicopter
right
down.
We're all a family, and then that's tragic.
So I have and then an hour I have there to go. So we are a family, and I think that's really important for those that have this.
And there's not a lot of help for that family. So when something goes wrong, and when you're dealing with, people don't expect, and I can go on with this forever, right? But you're you go to a call and you're doing CPR on a child and you tell the parents that the child is dead, and then immediately go to another call for someone who broke their leg or stubbed their toe or have been sick for a week. And you have to you build all of this up, and you don't talk to anybody about it over years. And then, so yeah, there were just a series of things that built up and no one to talk to. And then, eventually nightmares come and you don't sleep and you're just burnt out. So, I saw a psychologist and things like that. And they're like, yeah, you have PTSD. And I was like, well, what do you think I should do? Because, if this continues this way, I'm going to just be another statistic at some point. Right. And they're like, yep, time to quit. I was like, fair enough. So
but also know you said you turned back to tech. You turned back to tech.
I did. Yeah. So before I was, yeah. So before I became a paramedic, and that was a completely random choice. I worked at AOL on the AIM team for AOL Instant Messenger back in the day. I worked on Windows XP and Project Longhorn, which became Vista. Right. So
way in the day,
stuff like that back in the day. Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, I want to do something completely different. And I was a volunteer firefighter, and I was like, I want to do something completely different. I was like, what should I do? And I was debating between, becoming a police officer. And then I saw an ad, surprisingly enough, for a paramedic college. And I'm like, let's try that. So that was completely random, just completely random. And I figured wearing a stethoscope was better than wearing a gun. So I did that. And that's how that happened. But then, the burnout, the PTSD got me. And I basically sat unemployed for probably 3 or 4 months, just being happy again. And then I saw a random job. I was like, I think I want to get back into tech. I've taken a break long enough now from tech, and I saw this. I started in tech support. So at Ad Butler, they were hiring just a tech support. They were just developers back then. There were 5 developers in Rajiv, and I didn't have anybody doing tech support. I was like, I'm going to apply for this. And then, I met with them, and it's all history from there.
Well, EdTech's obviously a lot less intense than being in the back of a bus, but it has its own kind of burnout. And its own kind of frustration, its own moments of why do I do this? But you've experienced a real crisis, life and death. Does the ad tech drama look differently to you when someone is losing their mind over, let's just say, a CPM dip? Do you have a fundamentally different reaction to the person next to you who's never actually held someone's life in their hands?
Yes and no. It's a different kind of reaction. And sometimes I forget, kind of neglect to go back and say, look, no one's dying at the end of the day, right? Because you want to treat everybody.
Wish.
That's the wish, right? But it's funny how, if somebody makes a mistake and it does result in a company losing millions of dollars and they lose their job and now all of a sudden they lose their house and they're on the street, every decision that we do, especially in a level here where, we're making decisions that affect people's lives, and it's an interesting question. It's a different type of stress, but it's still stressful. And I had this conversation with Bogdan, our COO, and Rajiv, and I never really put it into perspective because as coming from that first responder background, for a long time I was like, well, at least it's not life or death. You're not. But then they put it to me one time. It was like, yeah, that's true, but you have X number of livelihoods on the line. So when you make certain decisions, or if things don't work and things go down, it can directly impact somebody's livelihood, right? Which is their house, it's their food for their family, right? So when you put it in that way, when you have the responsibility of making big decisions that can affect somebody like that, or if you're managing the infrastructure and the infrastructure goes down and people lose their jobs, sometimes it can be life or death. It might not be immediate, but it might be, there's an impact. You just don't think about it.
So rapid fire, no hedging, the first thing that pops in your head, the single biggest problem in ad tech that nobody's willing to say out loud.
Lack of transparency.
The thing you're most proud about that has nothing to do with technology.
Delivering a baby in the bus.
Oh, right. Not you personally.
Yeah.
25-year-old Rob could see you now. Would you be surprised, proud, confused, or all three?
Surprised that I've given up the paramedic industry. Yep.
One sentence. What does Rajiv, your Yoda, know about you that no one in the industry does? And we won't tell anyone.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I was going to make a joke, an Austin Powers joke. I open mouth kissed a horse once. But if you have to appreciate the old Austin Power movies. Go ahead.
So pausing on this question tells you more than nothing. Mentors know things about us that we not even know about ourselves.
Yeah, I tend to be an open book, I think. So I don't hide things if people ask it from me. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything I've ever told him that I haven't told anybody else. Not really.
Just something he knows about you. Just, in general. Anyways, last question. You said the world does not need superheroes. It needs people to step up. You personally have stepped up. You stepped up on an ambulance. You stepped up from PTSD and rebuilt your career. You stepped up to say unpopular things on stages. If you could go back and give one message to the version of yourself who was leaving the ambulance for the last time, the guy dealing with PTSD, not knowing what was next, what would you tell him? And does it have anything to do with ad tech, or is it something bigger than that?
Something bigger than that. Me now, if I were able to go back and talk to them, myself right then, was before I had kids, is that kids would change your life completely. But other than that, it's surprisingly, nothing is the end of the world. There's always opportunity. You just gotta look, right? Like there's always opportunities for things, and you just have to look. Like I remember being in that place and leaving and going, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. And thankfully we had a little nest egg, but it was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do next, and not knowing. But there's always somebody out there who's willing to take a chance on you. You just gotta look.
So we've covered programmatic duct tape, Google monopolies, media networks, island survival, and the road from ambulance to ad servers. Before we wrap, is there anything you wish that I'd asked that I did not? The unanswered question, sometimes the most important one.
No, I think we covered a lot. I mean, I think we kind of went all over the place. We covered a lot of different things to talk about. No, I want to learn more of your story at some point, and I don't know if I can find that somewhere. But I want to learn more of your story.
Check out your dance skills.
Yeah.
Your dance skills.
Rob Janes came to ad tech the long way around, through ambulances and airfields and mass casualty incidents, and a PTSD diagnosis that ended one career and quietly shaped everything that came after. He sees this industry differently than most people in it, not because he is smarter, but because he has a baseline for what actually matters that most of us never had to develop. If this conversation made you think differently about the pipes you work with every day, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if it made you think differently about the people sitting next to you at the next conference, even better. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Troutman Amin LLP and Incremental.com, who make this show possible and who deserve your attention. Links are in the show notes. And as always, stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday. I'm Pesach Latin. This is the ADOTAT Show. We'll see you next time.